Welcome to the Better Brave podcast, where you get to hear unique stories from guests like you who choose to live bravely outside of their comfort zones. I'm Candace Dudley, your host, former teacher turned online business mentor and podcaster. This podcast is for you if you're committed to living life on purpose, no more following the rules of society. Go hit the follow button if you haven't yet, and tune in every Tuesday for a new episode. All right, today I have Christine Farrugia on. She is a leadership and career coach and an executive with over 20 years of leadership experience in a wide variety of sectors, from retail to financial services to tech, leading teams of up to 200 people. She works with her clients to help them create careers that they are excited to get out of bed for every morning by helping them get clarity on their goals and the confidence to go after them. Christine has an MBA from Stanford University's Graduate School of Business and is a certified Kahn Method coach. Most importantly, she is a mom to two amazing kids, Oliver and Harper. Thank you so much for being here, Christine. I'm really excited to dive in and hear about your story. Why don't you start with telling us a bit about where you are now and how you got into entrepreneurship?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. So I'm relatively new-ish to entrepreneurship. I started a coaching business about 18 months ago now, doing career and leadership coaching for mid-career professionals. Before that, I've been in the corporate world for the last 20 plus years in a variety of roles, a variety of industries, have made so many changes along the way, and have been really focused on climbing the corporate ladder. And it really wasn't until I took a break and paused, not an actual career break, but just like took some mental headspace to pause and say, well, what is it that I really want to do? I was, at this place where I was feeling sort of stuck. I kind of climbed the corporate ladder and I was like, is this what I was doing? Is this what I was aiming for? And sort of thought, well, maybe I'm meant to do something different. And I really took the time to pause and reflect on what it is that I love to do and what I wanted to do with the next phase of my career. And I realized that I love coaching and mentoring people. And that's what I've loved at every job I've ever had. And if you'd asked me when I was 21 years old, I would have said I want to be a life coach. But I also would have said in the same breath that that's not a real job and you can't make any money. And I decided to give it a go. So I've had maybe a different path to entrepreneurship than some people. I haven't been doing it for my whole career, but it totally brings a different, unique set of challenges and opportunities along the way.
Everyone has such a very unique story about how they got into entrepreneurship. I just interviewed one of your friends, Hollis, last week, and she was like born and raised in it. So, But you and I have more similar story where I went to school to be a teacher. I taught for 13 years. And in the last few years of it, I looked around like it was Groundhog's Day over and over again. Like, this is it. There's nowhere else to go from here. I've gotten every piece of education I could get in this realm. And it just was odd to be at that point. And like you, I also kind of had some reflecting time and pauses where I'm like, wait, now I can choose. When you have that light bulb moment of you have a choice in the matter, I think that's really impactful too.
Yeah. And I think even for me right now, actually, I do the entrepreneurship and I still have a full-time job. So it's like, you can also do both, right? Like it also doesn't have to be this binary choice of, am I an entrepreneur or do I have a quote unquote job? You can also do both at the same time. I feel like a lot of the work I do with my clients is they always think it's like they're at a fork in the road and you have to choose option A or option B. I'm like, well, is there an option C? Right? And it's like, sometimes you don't have to choose and you get to do a little bit of all the things that you love.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I did the same thing. I did both for many years. We do like to think like this or that. There's nothing in between, but how about option C? I love that. What a great eye-opening thought. So I know that in your coaching, you talk a lot about helping your clients feel excited to get out of bed every morning for their career. How do you help your clients navigate that? Because I think that ultimately is, it's for me, it'd be a goal in my life to feel that every day. So how do you cultivate that with your clients?
It is this goal that I think a lot of us have. And it's, partially comes from your career, comes from your life, comes from all these different things. But who wouldn't want to be excited to get out of bed every morning and not dragging, right? But what I do with my clients is we go through these sort of 3-phase process. It's not linear. It's very messy, but I describe it in a linear way because it's the easiest way to describe it. And the first phase is really about getting clarity about what is important to you and what you actually want to do. That sounds maybe easy, but it's actually hard because what we want is often hidden beneath our judgments about what we want. So going back to the story I told earlier of when I was 21, I wanted to be a life coach. I didn't even allow that to be an option in my life because I was like, well, that's not a real job. You can't make any money. What would people think? That's not what I went to school for, all these things. And so you have to go deeper and have people be much more introspective to even admit to themselves what they actually want. That's the first phase of work is like, can you even admit to yourself what you want? You don't have to tell anyone yet. Just admit to yourself what it is that you actually want. There's a lot of introspective work in that first phase. And then the next phase is confidence. And in confidence is like, okay, now I know what I want, but like, do I actually believe that I can do it? Right? Do I believe that I could change careers without taking a massive pay cut? Or do I believe that I could start my own business? Do I believe that I could completely change industries and have someone hire me without the resume that might be the ideal fit? And so really working on what are the limiting beliefs that people have and then helping them reframe them to be more positive beliefs. And then the third phase, which is the most important, is action. And I'm sure you can relate that, we've all been there where, all we have to do is like email this one person and ask for something, and then we don't do it for 2 weeks because we're afraid or we're worried about what they're going to think. And that's often when the work I do is I become my client's accountability buddy to say, okay, great. So when are you going to send that email? Oh, great. Why don't you text me when you've done it? And, just that gentle nod of like, oh, well, Christine's going to text me on Tuesday and ask me if I sent that email is enough to make people do it. And, that's what really helps you collapse time and get to your goals faster versus sitting in that fear and that uncertainty. And so in short, it's really about clarity, confidence, and action, the work that I do to help my clients create those careers that they love.
And that last piece right there is exactly why it's always worth it to invest in having a coach, in having whatever kind of coach suits you in that season of life, because time is so condensed because of that extra layer of accountability. Really, that is a lot of times all you need. I mean, it's worked on myself and obviously
it works on me. I've had coaches and it works. And again, I'm not going to yell at anyone, but it's like that's like you just want to let someone down. That's the critical piece that often comes with it is like you can know what you want to do and you can just sit in a job you don't love for another year not doing anything about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's back up a little bit. You've spent 20 years in the corporate world. How do you utilize that in your role as a coach?
I use that all the time in my role as a coach. Most of my clients are people like me who are in the corporate world. And I think oftentimes when people think about a career change, they think it's a big change. Like I'm going to quit my job and start my own business. But oftentimes that's not actually what people want. They want to change industries, or they want to go from a giant company to a smaller company, or they want to stay in their role, but they want to set better boundaries between their work and their home life. And what I really bring is like, I understand that corporate world and that corporate dynamic and the corporate politics and, all the things that come along with it. And just that sort of general business sense to bring to the conversation of, I understand the world that my clients are coming from, which brings a level of, relatability and also the ability to share perspectives that are similar. Obviously, every company's different, but there's sort of similarities that run between folks that work in that corporate world and can help them navigate those changes.
Yeah. If someone is contemplating a career change, what advice would you give them?
So the main advice that I give them is, I guess, two pieces. So the first is always find something that you're running towards and not that you're running away from. It's so common, and I've done it myself, where you don't like your job. And so you look for a new job. And then you take whatever new job you get because it's better than your old job, but it's not actually something that you're super excited about. And so taking the time to figure out what you want to run towards or what you think will bring you more fulfillment, more joy, more happiness, more whatever it is that matters to you at that moment is the first piece that's super critical. And then the second piece is when you're going about making a career change, you need to have the right combination of confidence and humility. When I say confidence, it's like you might be going to take a job in a industry, a field, an area that you know nothing about. Or maybe you're starting a business and you've never started a business before. You need to have the confidence that the skills you're bringing from your 5, 10, 20 years of experience are adding value and that you're bringing a unique perspective to solving problems. And especially when you're in a leadership role, you need to know that your team probably knows more about the job that you're doing than you do, right? And that there's other people that you can learn from. And you need to be able to ask your team for help, ask questions, be a beginner again. But you also need to approach it in a way that you're not going to just sit there on your hands and let your team make all the decisions, because you have the confidence to know that your unique perspective is valuable. And so oftentimes people struggle with that balance and they go kind of like way too confident and they like forget about everything else, or they go way too humble and are like, oh, I don't know anything. And they kind of let things happen to them. And so it's really about finding that blend that works for you.
Oh, yeah, that makes total sense, because sometimes you think asking questions means I don't know anything, so I better not ask any questions. So then you go down that route of, you could have saved yourself a lot of time and a lot of mistakes and mishaps had you just asked someone that would have known the answer really quickly.
1,000%. Exactly. Yeah. And like, it doesn't matter what level of your career or how much experience you have. Nobody knows everything. And if anything, the ability to ask good questions is often what can separate you from other people.
Huge strength for sure. Back me up to you're working your corporate job, but now you decide I'm going to launch this side business or my own business alongside of it. What were your first initial steps? What was it that was like, okay, I have to do X, Y, and Z, and now I have this business that I could take on clients? Like, what did that look like for
Yeah.
you?
So for me, it was like a very slow, gentle burn of building my confidence, to be totally honest. And so I started out by reaching out to people in my career that I had mentored in the past, most of it, which were quite a bit younger than me, people that I was like not afraid of their judgment, basically.
Yes.
And I reached out and I said, I'm starting this business. Do you know anyone that would want like 3 free coaching sessions? Right. And so I got, some people who would do it for free. Then I would like, okay, let me reach out to my like best friends and see if they have anyone that will pay a very nominal amount, but like still a paying client, but like a nominal amount. And I would just sort of slowly reach out and tell different levels of people based on like how much I was afraid of their judgment, to be totally honest, until I was at the point that I was like, well, now, I have an Instagram account. I sort of do this. I talk about this in a public way that anybody could find. But initially, my biggest fear was like the fear of judgment, quite frankly, even though I had no evidence to prove that anybody would judge me.
Right.
So for me, it was just like start really small and prove out, do you even like this? Your
Yeah.
first goal, especially when you have a job and you're doing this as a side business, like your first goal is not to make money. My first goal is like, do I like to do this?
Yeah.
Right. So how can I test it out in a low stress way? And then I was like, okay, I just want to make like a tiny bit of money. Okay, now I can start charging. And then over time, you can start to charge what you're actually closer to what you're actually worth. But for me, it was a slow process of building up that business. And in a coaching business or a service related business, like there's not a lot of infrastructure you need. You can like get a Zoom account and a Calendly. Like that part is actually easy. For me, the hardest part was like putting myself out there and telling people that I was going to do this and asking for their help or asking for their business and doing it that way. And still today, the vast majority of my clients still come from referrals from my network or past clients or other things. And that just takes putting yourself out there and asking for help.
It really sounds like you just did one thing after the next, just one foot in front of the other, one bit outside of your comfort zone. Okay, now I can stretch it a little more. I'm ready to stretch a little more. And you just kept going one piece at a time. And I think we get stuck in I need a website. I need this, and I need all these big fancy things before I can start. And that is so false.
The first year I didn't have a website. I didn't even have Canva. Like I literally just sent people an email that I wrote in Gmail of like, here's what I do and here's what I charge. And like, you can PayPal me, right? It was like super easy. And then eventually it was like, okay, I can get a Stripe account so people can pay me with a credit card. Okay, I can build a website. Oh, I'll hire Candace and she'll help me make some checkout flows, right? Like, and I think it's also just building those things up because it's easy to be stuck in well, I don't have a website, so I can't launch this business. And I don't know how to build a website or I don't like to build a website. And then all of a sudden it's been 9 months and you still don't have a website and you haven't launched your business.
And now you don't even know, like you said, if you even truly do like this. You think you're going to like this, but you haven't done it yet. And so why would we waste time? I mean, paying someone to build a website is very expensive, or you do it yourself and you spend tons of time and don't feel great about it. And now you haven't even tested it out. So I love that you started with that free piece. We can't be afraid to give things away for free and to share things. That's why I say on this podcast, like I'm not gatekeeping ever. Like if you want to know something, you can DM me, you can message me. Like I'm going to tell you because why wouldn't we help each other out? We all rise when one of us rises. So share the knowledge. There's no.
And I think like I often tell my clients because it's all, when you want to make a change, it's like easy to get overwhelmed by like all the things you have to do. And I'm like, okay, but like, what's the one thing you can do today?
Yeah.
You can do something today. It might be email one person. It might be make a social media post. It might be, I don't even know what it might be, but it's like, take that small step and then the next step will show up. It's like sometimes we think we need this like master plan of like the next 365 days and all things I'm going to do. It's like, well, what are you going to do tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, great, do it. What are you going to do the next day? Okay, do it. All of a sudden your momentum snowballs and like that action creates confidence, right? And then you're like, oh, well, I coach those 5 people for free. I feel good about my ability to coach. Okay, now I'll charge money. Okay, great. It's like all about the building of the confidence and then like just taking the baby steps every day.
Oh my gosh, couldn't be truer. I always say, I wish that my confidence would show up before the action, but truly for me and my clients, like the action comes first when you're scared and you're nervous and you do it anyway. And then you feel confident. I don't know anyone who was like, I am just innately confident about all of this. And so I am not afraid to take any action. Like it's always backwards. And so I think if people knew that and just were like, oh, we might all feel like this. Yes, we all feel like this.
Don't wait till you feel ready because you'll never feel ready. You have to just do it scared. And, and if I look back on the things I was scared about, like now they seem like the tiniest, no big deal things that I do every day.
Yes.
Like I remember the first time I posted on Instagram on like a public business account, I was terrified. I was like, what are people going to think? And like, what? And I was like, now I do it every day. And it's like not a big deal and like maybe people are judging me, but like I don't care anymore, right? But like that first step, and so I
Oh,
just find it so interesting when you look backwards and the
yes.
things that seemed so scary, 6 months, 1 month, 1 week
Yeah.
later, like, oh, that's not
Oh
as scary.
yeah. I can remember my first post on social media too of like announcing like this is what I'm doing. And it was like 8 years ago and I can still like feel in my body how I felt. And I literally thought I was gonna puke that day. It was wildly outside of my comfort zone. I look back now and I'm like, well, that was ridiculous, but that's just where we were at in that season, and that's okay. But yes, the
Yeah.
confidence comes after the
And we still have
action.
another move that we're probably procrastinating taking
Yeah.
because it feels scary. And
Yes.
that's okay. And a year from now, we'll look back on that and be like, oh, I can't believe we were so scared about, whatever that
Absolutely.
was.
Absolutely. The other thing in entrepreneurship or just in life and in business, your mindset is easily, I don't know, almost like a roller coaster. It can be from day to day. How do
Mhm.
you keep yourself in a positive mindset? Because I do think that that positive mindset is so important especially in entrepreneurship.
In everything in life, but I think, yes, especially in entrepreneurship, because I think you don't have that same, like, you don't have a boss telling you doing a good job, or you don't have that sort of external validation in the same way you do in other places. For me, it's a few things. Listening to things that kind of get me in the right mindset, whether that's podcasts or different things that are just like really focused on that positivity and that focus around where I want to go. I also like write out my goals every single morning and, do some journaling, which I think really helps me get out of my head and really problem solve in a way that like I never leave journaling feeling worse. Like I always leave it feeling better.
Yes.
And so I think it's a way to get out of your head. And then also I think I've worked really hard on reframing some of the limiting beliefs that I have. And so I've sort of come up with some different phrases to say to myself, like everything's always working out for me. And like just saying those things in my head on repeat when I'm getting a lot of that sort of like that negative mindset to help pull me out of it. These are the things that I'm always working on because this is not something you just like learn and then you're done. This is
Yes.
something that's a constant battle and a constant journey, and that doubt always creeps in. I feel like I know I'm making progress when I can flip myself out of it
Mm,
more quickly. Not that the doubt doesn't come, it'll always come, but
yes.
like how much time do I spend stuck in it? How
That.
I can judge if I'm making progress in terms of working on my mindset.
For sure. Yes. It's always there from time to time. I agree. I love how you kind of took limiting beliefs, like pinpointing what those are for you, because we all have them. That's just a
Mhm.
thing of life, and creating an affirmation to
Yes,
rewire your brain. Like, no, we're just not going to subscribe to this type of thinking, and we can
totally. Yeah.
choose to subscribe to this. So,
Exactly. And it's
love
something
that.
I learned from my coach, Hannah Khan. It's just like reframing them for yourself. And it's just like, well, I can believe these other things. And it's amazing the more you do it. I used to believe that like the more I worried about something, the like less likely it was to happen, which is not a helpful, healthy
No.
belief. And now I believe everything is always working out for me. So it's like, but then
Yes.
once you start believing it, you start to see it from little things like, oh, I didn't have to look for parking. There was a parking spot right in front of me. Or like more recently, I was on a flight and we had to connect through Denver and we only had an hour and the first flight was supposed to be 45 minutes late and like, oh no. And then of course we landed and we had like more than enough time to get to the next gate. You're like, everything's working out for me. And your brain starts to look for the evidence versus looking at the evidence of the more negative things. And that's to me when I also can tell, oh, it's working because I'm noticing all these things that are working out for me, even though they probably were before. I just
Yeah.
spent too much time worrying that I was like, oh, I worried. That's why it didn't happen.
Yes. No, I know what you mean. One of the things that dictated my mind when I was a teacher was time, like just on the clock, and you never can be late, and there's not enough time. And now I kind of subscribe to it's just perfect timing. It's always perfect timing for us. Even this
Yes.
weekend, we decided to randomly go to a movie. And it's the theater's like at a neighboring town. We roll in like 5 minutes after the scheduled airtime that was online. And I just kept saying to the kids, don't sweat it. It's going to be perfect timing for us. And we walk in and literally sit down in our seats, and the movie starts playing like we didn't miss a
Perfect.
thing. And I mean, honestly, whether that was my belief making that happen or not, it's just a lot more fun and less
Well, it's
stressful
less
way to
stressful.
live.
Again, like, yeah, it gets a lot less stressful to go into that movie. Also, not like yelling at the kids and being like, hurry up,
Yes.
hurry up. We're going to get there when we get there. Like, it'll be
Yep.
fine. And it just removes a lot of that anxiety and
Yeah.
stress that isn't necessarily helpful, right? It's like
Yeah.
if stress is helpful because it makes you get to the airport half an hour earlier so you don't miss your flight, fine. But if the stress isn't helpful, then
Yeah. What do you wish people running their own business would know?
the biggest learning that I've had so far is being okay delegating the things that I don't like to do. So like hiring you, for example, is like
Yes.
if I'm doing like a master class and I was like, I don't know how to build this. This will take me days or hours and hours. And I like fill out a form and I send it to you and like an hour later, like, here you go.
Boom. Done.
And I think when you're starting out, especially you're like, oh, like, I don't know, but that costs money and I don't have, you know what I mean? And I think it's like, well, what could you be doing with your time that could help you generate more revenue by delegating the things and paying someone else to do the things that you don't like to do? But I think especially when you start out and you're a solopreneur and maybe you don't feel like you have the money to spend on those things. Sometimes it's like, it's an investment. It's not a cost. And sort of shifting that to be like, well, how can you spend your time at your highest and best use in the business? And I think at least for me early on, that was one of the bigger learnings that I had to go through of like, it's okay to spend money on things as you grow. And just like in my corporate world, like I don't do everything myself. You have a team. I have a huge team, but like, it doesn't mean that there's things I don't have to do, but it's like, you can create a team of people around you just in a different way, even when you're just starting out fresh with a brand new business as a solopreneur. The other learning I've had is you just have to keep going. Sometimes you try something and it doesn't work. And then you're like, oh, I tried this thing. I thought it would bring me all these clients. I got 0 clients out of it. It's easy to write it off and be like, my business will never work. I'm a failure, like whatever. And it's like, no, just try something else. And maybe you can go back to the thing you tried 3 months later with your learnings and like try it again. Everything is all about experimentation. And so one thing not working doesn't mean that you're a failure, your business is a failure and all these things. It's just like, well, how can we take the learnings and try something else?
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I was going to like host a class or this new random thing. And then you post about it, you share about it, you email it out. And then, no signups. You thought everyone was going to love it. You thought is what they were looking for. And then it just didn't hit or it wasn't the right timing. That used to scare me like so much because what if someone found out that I had a class that I like was going to host and nobody came? And then you're like, and then it happens and you're like, oh, well, that's really not a big deal. And also because no one came, no one knew about it except for the fact that I'm sharing this.
Well, nobody knew that nobody came. It's fine.
Yeah. You just move on to the next thing. So it's really actually not that scary. You learn so many things when those things happen because maybe you didn't give yourself enough time to market it. Maybe your verbiage
messaging was a little bit off, or maybe the time you chose to host it like didn't work. But I think you feel like you're a failure when it's like, well, actually, no, I actually learned something.
Yeah.
From that.
I also think it's easy to think that you're the only one that has ever happened to because who's sharing that? Which is another reason I'm like, this podcast is important because I'm going to share that. Who's getting online? Like I was going to host a class today, but nobody showed up. So here I am telling you about it in real time. Like this is not happening. So you think you get in your own head and you're like,
that's true. I saw these 2 coaches on LinkedIn and they did like a live or whatever. They were talking about how they planned this entire retreat and then they didn't get enough people to sign up. So they had to cancel it and they lost money even like, and they're like, but like nobody talks about the fact that we could have gone quiet and just canceled it and never told anyone. Like, no, it's like a learning experience to be like, no, we actually tried something. It didn't work. And here are the 3 things we learned. And like, maybe we'll try again next year. And it happens a lot in any career that you fail and you make mistakes. But I think sometimes in entrepreneurship, it's easy to personalize those a lot more because it's like your business. And especially if you're like a solopreneur, then you're like, well, it's all on me. But it's like these things happen in all areas of our lives. And that's okay. Take what you're going to learn and try something different.
Absolutely. So I could chat with you all day. This has been lovely. But tell us, what are you working on this summer? What's going on? What can we look out for?
Awesome. Thanks for asking. So I am starting the next cohort of my group coaching program, which is called the Career Joy Blueprint. It's going to be starting in mid-July. And this is where we take a small group of mid-career corporate execs who want to make a change or feel stuck in their career. And we take them through those 3 phases that I talked about before, the clarity, confidence, and action. My goal this time, it's a 3-month program. Come September, you're going to know what you want to do and be all ready to go, which is when, the job market and everything starts to pick back up. So you can spend your summer getting clear about your career goals and positioning yourself to really end this year, in a career that gets you more excited to get out of bed in the morning.
Oh, lovely. And where can we connect with you?
So you can connect with me on Instagram at Coach with Christine.
Perfect. I will link all that in the show notes for the listeners. And thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Thanks so much, Candace. This was so fun.
Hey, thanks for being here. I love being able to highlight entrepreneurial journeys because no 2 are the same. To grab my free sales page planner or to book a discovery call with me, head to the show notes. Finally, please leave a quick review so I can continue this work. See you next week.